Attention retail shoppers, it's been a roller coaster for America's shopping centers. 2020 saw COVID restrictions, some department stores, apparel chains closed, but 2021 saw shopper traffic rise and occupancy is growing too. Our guest today is Greg Maloney. He leads the group at JLL that manages over 450 malls and open air shopping centers in North America. We're going to ask him what's the state of the American shopping center. Plus, we're going to get more details on foot traffic, leasing, occupancy, and some interesting news about ghost kitchens at the mall. All of that right now on Everything We Know About Retail. Hi, my name is James Cook. I'm coming to you live from a chilly Indiana, and this is Everything We Know About Retail, where we tell all of you everything we know about retail, but we do it 3 things at a time. We go live every Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, Facebook too, but you should probably watch us on LinkedIn or YouTube. Make sure you don't miss it. Follow the JLL retail page on LinkedIn or find us at YouTube. You can find us at YouTube by going to everythingweknow.show, and that takes you to our YouTube site. And when you're there, hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you get notified every time a new show comes out. So today, I'm inviting a very special guest and co-host, Greg Maloney. Welcome, Greg.
Hi, James. How's everybody?
Fantastic. So for those of you who don't know Greg, he's the president and CEO of retail at JLL. He oversees this team that manages over 450 malls and shopping centers. And Greg, you're coming to us. Where are you coming to us from today?
I'm coming live from a beautiful place in South Florida called Lauderdale by the Sea, and that's where it is. It's right by the sea. So it's a beautiful day today, and hopefully where everybody else is, it's also beautiful for you.
Awesome. That's great. Well, it's certainly warmer where you are than it is for me. So Greg's going to be answering any questions you have. He's agreed to do what we call an AMA, and Ask Me Anything. So as you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, type in your questions for Greg in the chat, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of the show. But right about now, it's time for the first thing that we know about retail. And for that, Keisha Virtue is joining us. You're not very far from where Greg is, are you?
It's a short drive up A1A. Yeah.
So you guys are both in the Sunshine State.
Yeah, it's all of 75 degrees right now, which is why I'm wearing long sleeves for Florida.
Okay. I got to get Ebere on because he's in New York and he knows what I'm dealing with right now. So Keisha, we asked you here today because you track the retail real estate market statistics, and I wanted to get a sense of what the latest numbers look like.
Sure. Well, for 2021, if you can look at the chart, we see that retail net absorption totaled 76.1 million square feet. That's a tremendous improvement from 2020, James, because we saw a negative 28 million. Now, much of this absorption in 2021 is coming from smaller tenants moving into neighborhood and strip centers, as well as freestanding retailers. So this boost in smaller tenant expansion is pushing down the average store size to around 3,000 square feet, which is the lowest we've seen in the last decade. As far as who we're seeing expand, we have the usual suspects like dollar stores, discounters, but we're also seeing some movement from other kinds of retailers like QSRs, fitness centers like Planet Fitness, and mobile companies. It's worth noting that still the Sunbelt markets are dominating leasing activity and overall rent recovery. Not surprising, this has been the case for the last year plus with COVID going on. Atlanta, Phoenix, Dallas, Houston. These are all markets where we've seen over 1 million square feet in absorption over the last quarter alone. And Greg, I'm sure we've said it so many times, right? Retail follows rooftops, and it's
Right.
particularly fitting now, right? So,
Yeah.
yep, strongest population growth, good buying power, Sunbelt markets.
Greg, so we're seeing this like resurgence in leasing, occupancy is going up. What kinds of tenants are you seeing that are looking for space right now at the centers that you manage?
Well, it's interesting as we track this information, as COVID hit in 2020, we saw a lot of store closures. It was led by food, obviously, because restaurants couldn't open and so forth. But a lot of these retailers started to reconfigure their size, as Keisha just said. The stores are getting smaller in a lot of cases. And they also sort of trimmed off the lower 20% of their store counts to sort of readjust. So now you get into 2021. The only way stores can grow is to open up stores. It's hard to increase your profitability just on comp store sale increases. So we're really, James, seeing for the first time women's ready-to-wear and fashion starting to expand. That was in the decline for at least the past 3 years. We're seeing pure play online retailers like Bonobos and Allbirds and names that we hear a lot about, but now they're opening up stores throughout. So I think we're seeing a resurgence of fashion coming back. I think people are tired of wearing their sweats and their workout stuff every single day. They're wanting to get out. We're seeing that from the explosion of food in restaurants. And so I think the fashion, believe it or not, is going to follow. That's both men's fashion and women's fashion. So that's what we're looking at right now is growing for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, it's so funny. As I get back into more work meetings and get back out in the world again, I'm finding a lot of my clothes don't fit like they used to. So I'm going to be spending at the mall pretty soon here for our, we've got a big meeting coming up in Dallas, Greg, for JLL. And so I'm going to need to get some clothes for that. So Keisha, thank you so much for joining us today for the quick
My
stats
pleasure.
update. And stay right there. I'm going to come down and join you in Florida because I'm getting sick of the weather here in the Midwest.
Come right along, James.
All right. Thanks, Keisha. So
Thanks.
we've all been wondering as COVID ends and people are people going to come back out in the numbers to shopping centers like they used to back in 2019? So it's time to talk about the second thing that we know about retail. Taylor Coyne has been tracking foot traffic, and she's here you're going to give us a definitive answer. Are they at the malls at the levels that they were before COVID?
Well, it's always a tale. There are two sides to every story, right? But I like to follow in Keisha's footsteps and say, yeah, this is great. We've got great news. So suburban shopping center foot traffic is back. We've been seeing within 10% of 2019 levels since May of 2021 in our suburban malls, which that's great. You can see it is fluctuating just by that zero line. Sometimes it's above, sometimes a little below, but I call that is back to pre-pandemic levels. Some of our best performing malls, that we've included in this data set, for suburban malls. We've got the Village at Corte Madera in Marin outside of San Francisco. We've got Tyson's Galleria outside of DC. Urban centers are still lagging a little bit, but I've got to say, January saw the closest to pre-pandemic levels is close to, I think July was the most recovery we had seen so far. And this past month, we're back to that level again, which I think is really impressive considering all of the Omicron surges. One of the best performing urban malls, Brickell City Center, another shout out to Florida, which is really no surprise. Florida has been doing, incredibly well. Miami's urban corridors have done really well. So that's really great. So our urban centers also, so they're still 16.5% below our 2019 levels. But again, that's still a huge improvement from, in months past. So all great news. And suburban centers keep, keeping us all afloat with all of our shopping needs.
Yeah. So Greg, your team manages centers in the city, in the country, in the suburbs. Are you seeing similar trends that Taylor saw nationally?
Yeah, well, and Taylor tracks that nationally, as you just said, but it's really about where you live in regionals. Like as Taylor
Yeah.
just said, places like Florida and Atlanta, we're above, or at, the traffic levels. Some of the others are keeping those numbers down. So I think once we start to see, March starting to creep up on us, and then April, I think we're going to see those traffic numbers increase, especially in all parts of the country in the suburban malls. Urban, I think, is another lagging indicator that's going to stay behind for some time, until people really feel, I don't want to say 100% comfortable, but how about 95% comfortable that they can go out. So we're, for the first time, as you guys know, we're starting to see, urban locations starting to open up. The retailers are starting to open their doors. They're feeling a little bit more comfortable. So I think as the restaurants open up and the people start to returning, that's when you're going to see that urban retail foot traffic start to pick up.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for joining us today for the foot traffic update. I know that's something we always have you. That's a perennial topic, because it's like the feet, the dollars follow the feet. So we get the people and then they spend.
It was my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, up next, it's time to talk about the third thing that we know about retail. So this is, if you guys remember back when we had the lockdowns, we saw just an explosion of delivery and pickup. And part of that delivery explosion was ghost kitchens. And if you don't know what a ghost kitchen is, it's just simply a place where you can't go as a diner. They make the food for delivery from multiple brands from this one kitchen. So today, Ebere Anokute, hey Ebere, is here to tell us about a new partnership that brings ghost kitchens to the mall. So Ebere, tell us all about it.
Absolutely. I mean, we just talked about how we're seeing foot traffic return to pre-COVID levels at these shopping centers. And obviously, these shopping center owners are doing their best to make sure that they retain this foot traffic and offer new amenities to their shoppers so that they keep coming back, right? So Simon Property Group recently announced that they're going to be partnering with Kitchen United to bring ghost kitchens to their malls, right? They launched a new program called Grab, Go, and Eat. And in this program, Kitchen United is going to be operating kiosks at the mall where customers can order food from multiple different food vendors that already exist at those centers, right? So the way it works is that customers can either order at the kiosk, or they can also order from the Kitchen United app or their website, and they can pick up the food themselves at a designated locker in the mall, at the actual restaurant in the mall, or this is the craziest part, they can have the food delivered to them anywhere they are in the mall, even if they're in the middle of shopping, right? So I could be in the changing room at Zara trying on my new shirt, get a knock at the door, and it'll be, my Chipotle order or whatever being delivered right to me, which is something I've never heard of. I don't know if you guys have. So this is a really, really cool advent. And the first malls that Simon is going to be debuting this in are going to be the Del Amo Fashion Center in Los Angeles and the Roosevelt Field Mall, which is right out here in Long Island, close to where I am in New York City. So very, very exciting development. And we're, curious to see whether other property owners are going to adopt the same thing if it's a success.
So I need to get this Kitchen United app, and then I need to go to one of these malls because we got to test this out.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if I could fool them, be like, go hide in
exactly
in Zara or somewhere.
That'll make it difficult for them.
So Greg, what are the new F&B? What's going on with F&B at the centers that you manage?
Well, it's interesting listening to the new concepts and so forth, and we're going to see a lot of them because food is probably the hottest it's ever been as far as expansion and looking for spaces and looking for new opportunities. I think, if COVID taught us anything, it was like we don't like to eat at home all the time, because when we were forced to, we couldn't wait to get back out. Well, we had a lot of closures of restaurants, especially the mom and pops, but now we're seeing an explosion of growth, especially in the national and the regional food operators. They feel that void, and we can't get enough food in our shopping centers. We used to always say you can't get enough jewelry. Now you can't get enough food. We've gone somewhere between 3 and 5%, well over 10% of our space now is starting to be dedicated towards food uses. And that's all different kinds of food use, fast food, fast casual, white tablecloth, and so forth. So it's really all about food, and it's a great thing because you can tell for me, I love food, for sure.
Same, Greg.
What is the most popular, fast casual, like sit down, fine dining? What's the most popular in the mall? Is it probably the fast casual and the quick service?
It still continues to be, but what we're really starting to see is that better restaurant, because people now want to go in and sit down. Fast casual was the hottest thing before COVID. Somebody just mentioned Chipotle as being an example of that. Now, because we ate so much of that the past 2 years, I think the better restaurants are starting to see a surge in reservations and so forth. So in a lot of our properties, those better restaurants where you go in and you may only gone once a week or once a month, depending on your budget, are seeing lines and wait times and so forth. So that's really what we're looking to start to fill. You have so many different types of use. You have steak, and you have Italian, you have Mexican. Those are all good fast food operators as well. But that, sit down, like Mexican is a good example. It's people want to go in and they want to experience it. It's fun. There's music, there's entertainment. So you're combining all of that with better foods and healthier foods and fresh foods.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right. Well, Ebere, thank you so much for the Ghost Kitchen update. I want to learn more about this topic. I'm going to do some reading on my own. I think this is fantastic.
For sure.
All right. So, Greg, it's time for what they call an AMA, Ask Me Anything. Are you ready to be asked anything?
I guess so. We'll see what happens here. Hope I can answer them all.
Right. So if you've got a question for Greg, who oversees a group that manages over 450 shopping centers across North America, US, and Canada, type it in the chat and we'll get to as many questions as we can. So the first question we got in is from Jim Yarnell, who's with American Heritage Landscape. And okay, his question is about landscape. How does landscape appearance impact traffic at malls? Do you think it matters? Does landscape matter?
Well, I think it's again, if you think of your house, it's what does it look like from the outside? If you're going to sell it, obviously you spruce all that up. It's all about inviting people into your place to do something, in this case, shop or eat or whatever. So the more appealing it is to the eye, the more comfortable it is. We talk about egress and ingress, that's really important. And if you enhance that with landscaping, people notice it. There's no question about it. It's not something they drive in and say, oh, I love the beautiful landscaping. It's sort of subconscious. When you come in, you see the sign and it's beautifully landscaped, and it means a lot. So we do spend a lot of time in making sure that, as you enter a shopping center, whether that's an open air center or a regional mall, that it's very appealing to the eye.
Gotcha. Got that curb appeal. All right. Next question. This one comes from Noel Kennedy with UX Global Designs. Greg, what's your take on non-compete clauses in leases? Do we do that anymore? And are those hampering your work these days?
Well, as an owner, manager, or landlord, we hate non-competes. I mean, it's the best way to answer that. Non-competes, sometimes you have to give because you don't want to hinder the individual that is coming in, and they're saying non-compete for a reason, because they don't feel that competition will be healthy for that particular product or offering. So we really try to be very selective on the non-competes. We try to do as few as possible. The ones that really hurt us are sort of, we'll call it almost like a department store or somebody that sells a lot of things, and they want to have a non-compete with several different items. So if you think about it, a cell phone operator says, I don't want another cell phone operator in. that just doesn't work. It was something that they tried to do long ago. Well, if it was Verizon, then you can't get AT&T or Sprint or anybody else in. So we look at them very closely. And like I said, our goal is never to give them, I guess is the best way to answer it.
I love it. Very blunt. Okay. This one's from Emily. This is the long one. When it comes to driving compliance and verifying work service completion across such a big portfolio, what are your best methods? As this being crucial to the traffic coming to shopping centers, how important is it to have real-time property insight across all 400 plus shopping centers? So, Greg, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's a good question, and we break ours into different sections because we have single tenant, we have multi-tenant, open air, and then we have, of course, malls and all different kinds. So as we separate them, the compliance issues and how we deal with some of that, it varies based on the property. We have a team, operations team, as well as our marketing team that looks at it on a regular basis. Our property managers do it singly. We have we have property managers in the open air that have multiple properties that look at it. So it's very important to our owners. We have, different types of software and different types of companies. We just bought Building Engines as an example. That'll help us from an operations standpoint and puts controls and checks and balances in. So we used to do this, I don't want to say manually, but very labor intensive. And we're trying to now do it through technologies, cameras and different things. So we're always looking for new types of things to bring in the JLO. Like I said, we just bought Building Engines, which is a tremendous tool for us, technology that is going to make our lives easier for a lot of our property managers. So I don't know if I answered the question specifically, but that's the best way I can probably answer it this time.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's a question from Heather. In addition to fresh and healthy for food, are you seeing any other trends related to shopper demand for sustainable brands or offerings?
I'm just wondering, just food, or it's probably anything,
Just
right?
across the board, yeah.
Well, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the fashion side of our business is something that has really taken sort of the back seat for the last 2 to 3 years. A lot of us were, working from home and not having to worry about, our dress and so forth, because we were basically in either our workout clothes or our lounging clothes, and being on Zoom calls and so forth. Well, that is all changing. So I think what we're starting to see right now is a resurgence of fashion. People are now starting to shop for, going out and being seen and being around. Women's ready-wear and women's accessories is starting to increase. Our leasing teams are starting to see more demand for space in those categories, which is great news. And it's not just females; it's males as well. We're seeing, a lot of the men's store operators starting to pick up, and then of course we're absolutely seeing these pure play online retailers starting to open up brick and mortar stores. We saw that before the pandemic, and I think we're seeing a resurgence of that, especially with guys that are pretty well known, like Nobo and Allbirds and Warby Parker. They know that if they can open up a brick and mortar store, they're going to get more sales and they can grow their brand a lot quicker. So, what we saw a big push on the home goods when we were all at home. People were going to Home Depot and fixing things and fixing up their houses. And so that was a big surge. We're starting to see that, sort of level out now as people now are starting to go out and they want to be entertained. So we shifted from that, hey, let's make our nest and our home very comfortable, to now let's get out of our house and let's get some experiences going. So those are the types of retailers that obviously are leasing teams and that they're looking to expand. So that's probably the the thing that I've noticed, we just had a meeting here in South Florida with a lot of the leasing team, and that's what we were talking a lot about. Is that boy, it's nice to see women's ready to wear and men's starting to look for stores and starting to open up, where for the longest time we weren't seeing much growth at all.
All right. Well, here's a question that we sort of already touched on. Are open shopping centers working better in cities with good weather? So, open air, I guess, is probably what he means there.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously that's, it's always going to be a lot easier to go um, and be in Florida, for example, right now, and walking around open air than being in New York, where it's, I think we said 30 degrees, or even Indianapolis, where you are, James, at 30 degrees.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really stop people from shopping, quite frankly, even if it's cold. A lot of these places are destination oriented, and they know what they want. They're going to go in there. They may not linger around as long in a cold weather or rainy weather or snowy weather than they would in, a nice warm environment where it's, fun to just, casually walk around and browse. So it's always been, we from a development standpoint, we always try to look at ways to make it more comfortable in those colder climates or ones that have, weather issues. How do we make it so you feel like you're outside, you can enjoy it, but you can, weather the rain and the snow a little bit better than you do in other parts. So we do that through glass. We do it through a lot of different things, and higher buildings and blocking wind and those sorts of things. But for the most part, it's definitely, the open air works a lot better in the warmer climates.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. We have open air centers here in the Midwest, and I enjoy going to them around the holidays. It's got a great feel. And as long as you mentioned the wind, as long as it's not too windy, the wind's what really takes your breath away in the Midwest. So here's a question about activating the center. What are you doing to increase guest engagement? Things like live music, entertainment, performances. Any examples there to talk about, Greg?
Well, I think the question answers some of it. You
Yeah.
want that engagement. So our shopping centers are not, we used to say build it and they will come. That's not the case anymore. You have the competition for that dollar is in so many different areas. We talk about just what we manage, open air centers and, single tenant buildings and in malls. Now we're seeing it in, the basements or I'm sorry, the ground floors of multifamily, areas that are popping up, and not just service type things, but food offerings and service types of things. So we really have to make it worth that person's time and effort to come to our shopping center. Well, how do you do that? You entertain them. You make it so that it's fun. If it's around kids, it's what's going to drive those parents to put all the kids in the car and drive to the mall. We used to have characters, like Disney characters would come, and that was a big draw. Well, those types of things still work, but now we need to do more entertainment. So as you go especially in closed shopping centers, you're going to see more musicians, more entertainment. We talk about, things that we used to do in the malls back when I first started in the 80s, having jugglers and those sorts of things. Well, all that stuff's starting to come back because we want it to be an event. We want people to come and enjoy it. We all go down in urban locations, or at least we used to, and see the guy sitting there playing the drums or playing a musical instrument, and it adds sort of to the flavor of it. Well, we're going to start to do the same things, and well, not even start. We've been doing those things in our shopping centers. We're going to increase them. So what was old in the past, car shows and boat shows and so forth, they're all starting to come back because people want to do that. They want to go and they want to see those things. It's a great environment. The shopping center now, you can browse if you're a car fanatic or you want to see boats or whatever it may be. Stroll through the mall, look at them. You have people answer those. You can shop, you can be entertained, and of course you can eat, which is probably the three big things that we really try. And that extends the time people stay at the shopping center, which is what we try to do.
Yeah. So do most centers have someone whose job it is to put together different events, like community events and stuff, or is it only the bigger centers that have that?
No, we have regional marketing people in our open air that also help to do things in parking lots for open air centers is a biggie. But our marketing team, along with our what we call them specialty leasing, these are short-term operators that can come into our properties, whether it's a mall or an open air, and test out products and services and entertainment types things. So they're the teams, at least at JLL, that put all these things together and make it a fun event. Marketing is it's one of my favorite areas for sure, because it really puts the fun back into what we do. We're in retail because it's fun. Not that office isn't in some of the others, but I mean, retail just has so many different things going on. It's a fun place, and we try to make sure that we extend, that fun to all of our customers as they come into our shopping centers.
Yeah, talking about the specialty leasing group, they're the ones that will handle the pop-ups that come in. Are you seeing more pop-ups now, or have you seen any change around pop-ups?
Well, one of the things we just talked about was how do we have so many individuals out there, because they were homebound, experimented doing things in their basement, whether it's making a candle. We talked about somebody the other day. Well, I can mass produce these cool looking candles, but how do I let everybody know? I mean, you go on the internet and you can post it, but our specialty leasing people are starting now to go out there and ask and start to advertise, hey, if you have that one of a kind product and you're trying to figure out how are you going to distribute that product, how about our shopping centers? And we just talked about, as an example, offering free rent for a week to a month to some of these individuals to test out their product. So we started thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we had an empty space to put in 7 to 10 to 20 of these individuals testing out their products to see what the consumer thinks? Well, guess what that it's also going to do? It's a local flavor. It's also going to bring in a lot of friends and family into the shopping center. So it's a win-win. They get to, experiment with something, and you never know. This is how entrepreneurs get started. We encourage younger kids. Our specialty leasing people are going to these different schools, high schools, and the community colleges, and saying, if you have something, let's try it out in our shopping center. Let's bring it out there. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of legwork. But our specialty leasing teams, that's what they're designed to do. These people are diggers. They go out there and they try to find them, and they want that new product. And who knows, if we may have the next Bill Gates out there someplace that'll be in our shopping center doing something.
I just thought it would be a great reality TV show to follow specialty leasing people, and then the entrepreneurs, these small business people, and see which ones are successful and stuff like that. We got to pitch that. We got to get our own reality show.
Oh yeah, I guarantee you, James, you can get some of the specialty leasing people on here, and they would be very entertaining and open a lot of eyes of things that they are doing, because it's pretty amazing what they dig up out in these markets.
That's awesome. So, Greg, we have more questions, but we're out of time. Time has flown by. I really appreciate you coming to join me today,
Absolutely.
taking some time out of your schedule, and we're going to have you on again.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it, and hopefully everybody learned a little bit about some of the shopping centers and what's going on out there. But I'll just end, James, by saying retail is back for sure. I mean, we're going to see a big surge of traffic and retail sales in 2022.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
So for all of you out there, if you want more, here's what I'm going to tell you to do. Listen to our audio podcast called Where We Buy, because that's the place where we go way in depth on individual topics. You can search for Where We Buy on whatever podcast app you use, or just go to wherewebuy.show. But make sure you don't miss episode of Everything We Know About Retail, which is what you're watching right now. We are on LinkedIn every week on the JLL retail page, or you can find us on YouTube. If you go to everythingweknow.show, that will take you to our YouTube page. You get there, you click subscribe, you click the bell icon so you get that bing every time we come out with a new episode. You never miss one. So we're going to be back next week. We do new episodes every Thursday at 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern. And, if you want to learn everything we know about retail, you're going to have to join us here again next week.